Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. Today we're going to do a review of an oldie but goodie, Memoir 44. Now, I've referenced this many times over the years in various videos as a game that has been a staple in my collection, and one of my friends like, you've never actually reviewed it, so how do I know you actually think it's good and you're not just twisting my leg and pulling my arm? And so I decided, you know what? Yeah, Memoir 44 is a game from 2004. It's almost as old as my son. It's by Richard Borg. It deals with, well, the base box deals with World War II in the European theater. Many add-ons have since been released over the years, all with varying degrees of success. But we're going to go ahead and give this a whirl and show you the base game right now. All right, let's take a look at what comes in Memoir 44, the base set. Front of the box, back of the box, and cheat cards. How handy. You get a map, and this map is double-sided. One side has a beach, the other side has generally meadow-like terrain. And then you get these hexes, and the hexes are double-sided, and each mission, as you will look in the scenario, oh, you also get a manual here, gives the rules and all the scenarios, kind of shows you how you set them up for each of the scenarios you will play. Very simple stuff. You have a set of dice. Two sides are infantry. One side is like a grenade, which is like, hey, like anything goes. You also have tanks, armored, and then you have the green star, which is a miss, and then the flags, which are retreat. So America gets, you've got your infantry units, you've got your tank units, and you've got artillery and certain barricades, such as these sandbags and wire, etc. The Germans also, in like manner, have tanks, infantry, and the usual accoutrements. There's a common set of cards. This is the common deck, which you will use to play cards and then manipulate forces based on which cards you choose to play. Other than that, there's a few extra tokens for things like special units that have special abilities. You've got victory point, double-sided victory point tokens, and whatever. Now I'm going to start. Let's get into the gameplay example. Now I'm going to show you a game in progress because that's going to be more interesting than just doing the initial turns where some action, but not a ton of action takes place. I've set up Pegasus Bridge. This recreates the June 6, 1944 historical background, late hours of June 5th, led by Major John Howard, men of Oxford and Buckinghamshire Light Infantry step aboard 6 Horsa-gliders on a secret airfield. They do an airborne assault. They land here in these groupings. This grouping, this grouping, this grouping. Their idea is to take these two bridges. Their victory condition is 4 medals for each side. So theoretically, you don't have to take the bridges, but it helps because as long as you hold the bridges, you get 2 victory points. Taking out an entire unit, victory point. The Germans, on the other hand, are set up here, set up with these fortifications, and if they take out any 4 of these units, they win. Simple stuff. Now, as the battle began, I was in this group here. However, stiff resistance and excellent shooting, unfortunately, knocked me back, took out one of my units, and left me in this state. I took my second groupings here and went up to support this front, while at the same time moving over here to support this attempt to grab the bridge. I currently have the bridge, which is why, of course, I terraform the stream at the same time, which is why I have the victory point. The Germans, on the other hand, managed to take out that one entire unit, so they have a victory point. So it's 1-1. So how do you play? Well, you take turns playing these cards, and these cards are really the lifeblood of what you're going to do. The map is split up into 3 different sections, and each of these sections is what you'll see on these cards. And you'll notice that, for example, for recon, you can order 1 unit in the middle. And that seems weenie, except that you can also, at the end of the game, draw a new command card, draw 2, and choose which one you want. So you got a little bit of flexibility then, not so much now. What happens if you don't have units in there? Well, that kind of stinks for you, doesn't it? So keeping spread out is great. Here, for an example, I can order 3 units on this side. Well, I only have 2 units on this side. Thankfully, if you straddle either side, you get to play the card on either side. That's kind of cool. But I would only be able to do 2 units here, but I could still use the card. Then you have specialties, which special cards, for example, after your opponent declares a close assault, that's when you attack right next to an enemy unit rather than ranged. rolls his dice, play this card, roll the battle dice first. Yeah, so basically you can ambush someone, that kind of makes sense, it fits in. And then you have some general cards like, hey, I can just order 4 units of my choice. I'm going to go ahead and do this. This is the assault. It's going to order all units on this side. That means only these 2 units, but hey, whatever. All right, so I use these. These are kind of nice little monikers to help note, because the way you do is you determine which units you're going to activate, and I just kind of place those there. It just helps me out. And then I decide, am I going to move? Because then you move all your units, and then you do the firing motion. So that's what's interesting about this game, is that you don't necessarily move a unit and fire, move a unit and fire. You have to do all of your moving, and then you can do battle based on where they wind up. So, yeah, so anyway, so in this case, we're going to move this unit here. Now, what happens is, like, based on whatever the type of unit is, you can determine what they do. And it's pretty simple because there's not that many units. But for the most part, infantry can move 1 space and fire, or move 2 spaces, but they don't get to fire. Tanks can move... they have rules for how they move and fire, and their firing is a little bit different than others. And a lot of that's noted here in the standards. So you'll notice in the card here, like, this is simple. You can move 0 and 1 in battle, or move 2 in off battle. You can take ground, which means that if you manage to make an adjacent enemy unit retreat, you can move into that spot and take ground. Armor can actually just keep attacking at least twice if it wants to. Artillery is fun because it can't... You either move it or you battle. It makes sense. And again, these are the firing ranges. It's interesting. So for infantry, there's a fall off here. If you're shooting right next to another unit, it's 3 dice, then 2 dice, and 1 dice. Tanks just go 3, 3, 3. We are powerful and mighty. You will not thwart us. Artillery has a long range, but note that it also has a fall off. And it ignores line of sight, which is kind of cool. So there you go, and then special units. So, and all of these little helpers will give you some information. For example, you can't cross a river except at a bridge. If you go into a forest, then you have to stop. All the terrain has very logical, very simple rules that go with it. So, if for example, you move in, you can't battle. You have to wait. That's kind of cool. Hills kind of give you an edge for being on a hill always helps, right? And you get terrain protection and units firing in. For example, if you're in this forest, anything that fires in loses 1 dice. If you're infantry firing in, if you're tanks firing in, you lose 2 dice. And cities are the same way. Like, if you're in a city, you have additional protections afforded you once you're in there. Although if you're armored, then you also have additional penalties afforded you when you fire out. Everything works smoothly. It just makes sense cinematically. It's the simplest of situations and rule sets to follow. Let's just get rolling. So we've activated our units. We've moved 1. We're not going to move here because we still have line of sight. Line of sight is pretty simple. Center of the hex. Anything blocking it? No. A little bit tricky in that if there was some blockage on the left and the right all the way to the target, that would block it. But in general, you just kind of go, hey, can I shoot here to here? Yes. Can I shoot through here? No, you can't shoot through your own units either. Friendly fire is not encouraged. So we're going to stay here, and now we're going to fire. The first thing we're going to do is fire with these units. One of the reasons for that is that they might retreat. And if they retreat, then it might make it less... Yeah, 3, 2, 1... Now, we're going to fire here first. There's a possibility that if these have to retreat, that this might put them out of range of other units. That's why it's so interesting to have the battles phase and the moving phase and all that. So we're going to fire here into here. Normally, as the card says, we would hit for 3, but these sandbags give it a bonus for the defender, and so only 2 dice are going to be rolled. So what are we going to do? We're going to roll 1 dice. Hit. Another dice. Oh my gosh, hit. We have literally taken out this unit. Da, 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 da. Bye-bye. And, and the sandbags generally go with it because, well, what do you do? And because it was close combat, I have a chance to move in. However, do I want to risk that? If I move in, I got a lot of enemy units. Do I stay back in the hopes that they shoot farther away? Otherwise, here there's close combat. That could be interesting. But I got to take that bridge. Interesting decisions. Very interesting decisions. Then I have 3, 2. There's nothing this unit can do. So, yeah, that's one of the things that goes on. And in every scenario, some of the rules are different as far as who shoots what, or how many cards they get. Not sorry, who shoots what, but how many cards they get. And so, like, right now, this is heavily skewed towards the Americans because they've kind of got the element of surprise. They get 6 cards. The Germans kind of have 4 cards, and so they don't have as many options limited. And so now we've done that. So now it's time for the response by the Germans, and the Germans can order units in the middle. They don't really have that going on. They're going to order 1 unit or 3 units. They're kind of in a situation too, and I put them backwards because if you're playing with an opponent, like, this might be the same, but obviously this would be different as far as which side. So I'm playing it as if the enemy is here and they're choosing a card, and they're going to do this, order this unit, and they're going to pick a unit, and they're going to say, I'm going to shoot, I'm going to 1, 2, 1, 2. You know what? It would me. I would do this. Well, I mean, they're afforded some protections right now in the city, in that they can't be fired. If the Americans fire on them, they're going to take a penalty. However, they do want to keep that bridge intact. You know what? They're just going to do this. We're going to activate that. We're not going to move it, and we're going to fire. So fire. So 3, 2. 2 dice get rolled from here, and they are a hit and a hit. Oh my gosh. So we have now just depleted half the American forces on that side. That changes the game. We don't really want to take those in, because if we just send them in as fodder, every unit we lose is a victory point for the Germans, and that's not so simple after all. And so we're finished that. Again, because of the way this card works, you can draw two cards and keep 1. You'd be like, oh, well, I'll keep this one because that's more advantageous. And that's the game, really. That's what goes on. Now, for example, if we had, say we had fired, let's just get into theoreticals here. Say we had fired here and a flag had come up. Well, a flag means that the unit has to retreat. They don't get a choice in that matter. That's why fortifications are pretty important. Those sandbags can ignore flags, the first flag, not the second one, etc. Lots of rules on retreating, but these units would have to retreat backwards. So there's really only one place they could go. If they ever get stuck where they can't retreat, they lose units instead. And again, there's a possibility of missing, which my enemies apparently never do. And then again, there's other things like a tank. If you roll a tank and you were aiming at infantry, that's a miss too. But yeah, so that's how you go. And that's generally the idea. Now, you get more complicated scenarios going on. This is the basic, simplest of the scenarios, but you can get into some really interesting beach, like Omaha Beach. You get into terrain, much more terrain. You get tanks, you get artillery. Pretty much you go all the way through. You can buy 2 copies of this and you can put them back to back and seriously play Overlord. So there's a lot. This packs a punch for a game this old, this inexpensive. This game still, I'm getting in my review. It still shines, but let's get into that now. Okay, final thoughts on Memoir 44. All right. First, we'll get into the cons. It is true, and you're going to need to understand, if you are a war gamer and you have played hundreds of games and you are grizzled and you've got the chit counter war wounds and the tweezers of glory and all that, this is not going to be something that's going to be more than a passing fancy for you unless you really just put yourself in that mindset. It's luck. There's a lot of luck in this game. You will have a lot of luck. You will have a lot of good luck. You will have a lot of bad luck. It will just happen to be that way. Yes, I don't agree with the number of detractors who say that this is all just a luck fest. One of them described it like, Mickey Mouse Yahtzee or whatever. That's not true. You do have options. You always have card options. You always have situations that you can manipulate. You're still playing the odds. You're still trying to get people in a position where they can perform. And that's not exactly like a foreign concept to war anyway. Stuff happens. Best plans don't make, fail when you make contact with the enemy and all those other like high level stuff. But it is, to be honest, there's a lot of luck. You're not gonna go like I beat you from pure raw mind power. So that's the one thing. If you're in that group and you're in that mindset and you're like, I'm not going to deal with the simple things in life. I'm here, not here. You're going to be probably finding this to be a little bit too simple. It is simple, and that's also its strength, and so we're just going to get into the pros. The pros are the production values are classic Days of Wonder production values. Just beautiful units. You got your plastic tanks, your plastic units, you got your artillery, you've got everything, nice glossy cards. The manual is very clear, very orderly. Every scenario gives you all the information nicely done. Because it's such a simple game, you're not dealing with pages and pages of addendum or FAQs or anything like that. You're dealing with just a pure simple game. So the component quality is top notch for a game so long ago. They really set the bar, and I'm glad they did. The other thing I like about it is that it is the quintessential approachable war game for people to give to someone to start understanding war, like games of war. Is it a war game? Don't care. I'm not going to get into that. But it is a game that features a high-level sort of cinematic war feel. And yes, that luck, despite being a detractor, can also be an attractor, because you're on stable ground with whether you played this game 100 times or 0 times. There's not this huge gap where I'm just going to crush you, noob. There's still the chance that the rolling of the die could change things, and people will learn. It's an excellent onboarding a game to get people going. The scenarios are very different. Starts off with a very simple one, grows and grows. You add armor, you add artillery, wire rules for wire and sandbags and all that stuff. You have just, despite the small amount of hexes and whatever, you get a lot of variety for how the maps map. Even today, Days of Wonder puts out scenarios every month that feature some historical war or battle that occurred during that month. It is fantastic. The cards, very simple cards: left, middle, right. Some special ability cards. A couple. Hey, let's do ambush and stuff. But for the most part, the majority of the game is moving your units, attempting to fire, using the terrain rules. It's a real great tutorial for just terrain rules, because everything from this game, all of the concepts of wargaming and terrain tables and movement rules and almost every aspect is featured here in such a simplified way that you can just kind of get the idea of it. And this could lead you into other games like Tides of Iron, I think, and some other games that are next. And then pretty soon you're going, oh, this is cool. Like, you could make your way up to Combat Commander Europe and go, wow, I'm really into this. So whether that happens or not, I don't know. All I know is that Memoir 44 is 18 years old. This is almost a 20-year-old game that has held up better than almost any other 20-year-old game I own. It's even in this day and age, I love to pull it out. I love to play. I love to just feel, sometimes you just want a break. Sometimes you just want a War and Pretzels game that just says, hey, you know what? Let's just play this. We got 42 minutes. Let's go see what happens. It's generally easy to set up. It's generally easy to play. All the rules make sense. I even remember, I pulled this out. I probably hadn't played it in, maybe over a year, and I still pull it out. I'm like, yep, I remember. I got 90% of what I needed to remember. I remembered. That doesn't happen with a lot of other war games because of the minutiae and the details. Again, plenty of places. I have moved on so much to other really amazing, really detailed war games, but I cannot in any way take away from Memoir 44 as one of the first and best games that I've played. One of my favorite memories was I had a boss just a wonderful boss who was heavily into board games, and he and I would come in some Saturdays to work, and we would set up and play a campaign, and we, they have a campaign book, they have the Eastern Front, they have Air Wars, there's a lot of scattering thing. The only downside is that a lot of these are not available or hard to get a hold of. Someday I hope that they revisit this entire line and do, the Supreme Memoir box. Because I'd like to pick up some of the extra stuff that I missed out because I didn't pick everything up. But in general, just favorite memories are just playing this campaign game, and going through the scenarios. I lost because, you know, not just because he's my boss. But anyway, if you're looking for a fun game, this is still available on Amazon for dirt cheap, comparatively speaking, for the value you get out of it. One of the best introductory games that you can give to people to play. It's enjoyable enough. It's fun. There are tense moments rolling those dice. You know, and even on the side of like, oh, I want to take you out. I don't want you to retreat. You know, you even have some tension in that. When you're rolling, you're not just rolling going, oh, I miss. It's, oh, man, I could have hit you, but now you got to retreat. You got 2 flags. Oh, now they're way back, you know. And these are not decisions you make. This is not Yahtzee. You do have to go like, okay, the order that you fire the units, the order that you move the units, it all matters. And it matters in just a exquisitely simple yet exquisitely entertaining way. So Memoir 44, highly recommended. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.